23 cars coming out to play, and it's looking as though it's going to be a cracking race. But don't forget, the light is going to be fading with every single lap, so it's going to be changeable conditions. And of course, in this field, it's a two-driver race. A couple of drivers are racing on their own, and it's going to be really, really enthralling to see what they can manage. Grid looks busy, but social distancing is being maintained. And right now, conditions very, very changeable. The track is dry, the temperature is dropping. Track temperature, fortunately, is still dropping, but it's a hot, humid evening. And this is the first of their two races. On pole position, we have Sebastian Balthazar, young German racer who popped up and put his car on pole very, very tidily for Leipzig Motorsport by 0.2 of a second, I seem to recall, from Edoardo Liberati. So a few new names at the front, but Balthazar, that is definitely one to watch, especially as he spent 5 years away from racing. This is his comeback season, and the last thing he raced was single-seaters in India in the start of 2016. So really astonishing run for him. Leipzig Motorsport have taught him well, alongside Edoardo Liberati for VS Racing. That's the team run by Vincenzo Sospiri. So much experience in the Super Cup. And then Vito Postiglione, who took victory here 12 months ago, sharing with Kiko Galbiati. They'll be starting third for Imperiale Racing, with Target Racing making it 4 teams in the top 4 positions. Kevin Rossell will start. He's a Danish racer. But let's go down to the grid and speak to Sebastian Balthazar's teammate, Markus Paverud from Norway.
Marcus, we're just coming into dusk now. The light's changing. The conditions are changing from when you qualified this morning, of course, massively. Yeah. But you're in a hugely advantageous position to really make it into the first corner. It's a short run, tight corner.
Yeah, I feel like now it's Sebastian driving. He hasn't really been taking a rolling start, so he's really knows. But as I told him, you're now starting P1. It's the best start position you can have. So just calm down. The surface is now colder, the grip is better. So I think you'll do a great job.
And of course, you know, getting into that first corner, we've seen it can be quite difficult.
Yeah, it's a tight corner, and then you have if this guy decides to stay on the outside, you'll have the inside for the next one, and then you will have the inside for the next one after that. So it's tight, and it could be really hectic with all these cars. Everyone wants to win. So yeah, we just need to see and hope for the best.
Just keep it clean. Have a great race.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Markus Paverud seeming very cool, calm and collected, but like his teammate who's on pole, he's stepping up from GT4 racing. So there are a few noses out of joint. The established Lamborghini stars to be going, oh, right, OK, we've got this crop of new stars this year. But lapping in qualifying is one thing, very impressive to take that pole position, but how they handle them through the course of the race, how they keep the tyres sweet, how they do the driver changes. Alongside on the front row, nose slightly in front on the pole, on the side close to the pit wall, is Edoardo Liberati, and certainly looking for a great run, sharing with Ollie Parhankangas, or Ollie Kangas as he's known. Look at that, as a pace car to lead you round, a pace car with a little bit more. And certainly very impressive, the Lamborghini. The big, tall Lamborghini. Anyone who just thinks it's a big, tall Lamborghini's got another thing coming when they get on board one of those, because they have really rocked everybody who's got in, either to drive them or as a passenger, and certainly very spectacular and stand out in the bright yellow livery. Lamborghini Ursus. Seems a classic case. It looks lighter on the grid than it really is. The TV cameras always seem to pick up a bit more light than is there, but it's falling fast. The race is due to start in 9 minutes' time. It's a race of 50 minutes duration. It's pucker, full darkness come the end. And certainly for the drivers doing the second stint, they might as well look at the track now. They're going to struggle to see it when they get out to do their bit of the race later on. 50 minutes of racing. And Vincenzo Sospiri's cars run in 2 race liveries, and Edoardo Liberati is running in the sort of gunmetal and yellow and blue livery. The sister car further back down the grid is running in the more traditional white with yellow and blue stripes that you see. That's quite a lot further down the grid. It's in the Pro-Am class. Andrei Lewandowski starting the number 16 car about 5 rows further back. He's sharing that with Carol Bass, and I tell you what, Carol was the quickest driver in one of the qualifying sessions, so expect the pole, Carol Bash, to help his Polish teammate and certainly move forward in the second half of the race. But the clock is counting down. 3-minute board has been shown. And the focus will be coming on strong. We have the formation lap, and even during that formation lap behind the Lamborghini Urus, the light will continue to fall. Drivers know what they need to do. The area around the pit lane, as you can see, the start-finish straight has floodlights around it. There are floodlights down the back straight, but the light is strongest when they go back past the pits. And there will be definite dark patches around the circuit as the race develops, and full darkness by the end of the day. Concluding a very, very busy race Saturday here at Misano. The circuit, Marco Simoncelli. And the fact we're racing again is what all of us racing fans live for. And for all the drivers, they might have felt a little bit like spare parts through the close season. A lot did. Online racing, the sim racing, e-racing, virtual racing, call it what you will. For a large number of the drivers, this is what they live for. And this is what we're about to go and do. And of course, tomorrow's race will be in full daylight. So it really is a race that's a meeting of two totally contrasting races. And certainly with the alternate driver in these cars defining the grid for tomorrow's race, the grid is entirely different in its race order. In fact, pointed out by the fact that Karel Basch will be starting from pole, yet the car he shares with Andrei Lewandowski will be starting in 12th place in this race. It's a 50-minute race, mandatory pit stop. Comes between 20 and 30-minute markers in this race. But now the temperature's falling slightly. Won't feel like it if you're sitting on board one of these cars. Always very hot in the cockpit. You can see every single door is kept open, and as long as they possibly can. But now we can see the cars in all their beauty. The grid has been all but cleared. One mechanic per car alongside. The 1-minute board is shown. People down on the coastline on the Adriatic side of Italy will be missing something unless they're watching on the screens. But the fact we're racing again is what is magical. And the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, the European Series, kicking off this evening. Another race tomorrow, and then we move on to the Nürburgring at the start of September. Barcelona, hopefully the 11th of October, 24th of October, Spa-Francorchamps, and ending mid-November, 15th of November, at Circuit Paul Ricard in the south of France. Formation lap to be carried out. Everything looks clear. The marker board is going to go up at the front. Last few people are leaving the grid through the gap. There we are, 15 seconds, engines on, headlights on. Attention, hopefully fully on indeed. Last chance for these drivers to go round behind the Lamborghini Urus pace-setting car at the front of the field. Check for any debris out on the circuit. Check that they've got tyre temperature. Check they've got the right level of brake temperature. Check that they're focusing on this really short run. Next time around here, they'll come round. It's such a short blast down to turn one, under the Pirelli bridge, and then it's a tight right, followed immediately by a tight left, and it can get very, very busy indeed for all of these drivers. 50 minutes of racing ahead. Sebastian Balthazar on pole position. That's a surprise. Maybe it won't be a surprise in the next two rounds, but he's really, really laid down on his marker. Just worth reiterating, he's back to racing after 4.5 years away from competition. So he's really proving something indeed. Edoardo Liberati, nobody's fool, the outside of the front row. Vito Postiglione knows more about Super Trofeo racing than anybody else, I could vouch. He's up on row 2. Inside of row 3, Dean Stoneman, British racer, taking to Lamborghinis. He's racing solo. Raul Guzman from Mexico alongside. Then Dorian Boccolacci and Jonathan Cecotto sharing row number 4. Max Veering, a young Dutch racer, dipping his toe in the pond. He's been impressive so far. And Jake Rattenbury, a Welsh racer for Lippert Motorsport, running in the pro class this year, starts 10th. Then you get the Pro-Ams. Damiano Fioravanti for the Italian Oregon team, and Jacob Noll, Czech racer for the Czech Mikonek Motorsport team. Massimo Mantovani also doing the solo duty. 50 minutes of racing all to himself. He starts 13. Conrad Motorsport, we've got Vincent Schwartz and his teammate Franz Conrad, the man himself. 15th position is where Alex Lewandowski, Andrei Lewandowski will be starting from, but his teammate Karel Basch will be very quick. Look for progress from that car in the second half of the race. Car number 16, remember that number. Down towards the tail of the grid, Gerhard van der Horst is running in the Pro-Am class this year. Claude-Yves Gosselin alongside Fabuson Gignon in the gold liveried car. And then Libor Dvoracek from the Czech Republic and Hans Fabry in 21st and 22nd positions. And bring up the rear, we've got Lechman in the second of the Conrad Motorsport cars. So a lot of drivers out on the circuit. Martin Lehmann bringing up the rear of the field. At the front of the field, though, it's Sebastian Balthazar, number 2. at pole position, on pole position for Lippert Motorsport. Grey, red livery, and in behind the grey, blue and yellow livery of Edoardo Liberati. An Italian driver who spends a lot of his time racing around the world. A nice opportunity for him to race on home ground. Comes from Rome, but has done a lot of his racing out in the Far East. And most recently been racing a KCMG Porsche. So all change, but all international racing drivers, pros, need to be able to hop from one to the other. So we're waiting for the full field, 23 cars, to work their way up to the final corner. They'll be released by the Urus, and it's up to the front two on the front row. Sebastian Balthazar, he'll be on the right-hand side when they reach the first corner, which is a right-hander. And alongside Edoardo Liberati, who will get the better start? It's a long hold, and now we flick from red to green. Darkness is falling by the moment. Who is going to be leading into the first corner? It looks so surely Sebastian Balthazar has done enough, but sweeping around the outside goes Liberati into the lead, but he is now going to be on the wrong side when they get to the next corner. Will in turn 3 his nose still be in front, or will the red nose of Balthazar's car have swept through? But no, indeed, it's Liberati who holds on just enough of an advantage through turns 1 and 2 to be ahead in turn number 3. One car seems to be making progress. Dorian Boccolacci round about 6th place. He's gained a position. Very busy indeed. They go out over the curbing, wide on that infield straight. Cars go away, come back into the scene, but it looks tidy. Car 11 is the one carrying our onboard. That is Dorian Boccolacci. He's the driver I said made a position. The orange, well, a yellow, pink and green car from Oregon team. They've got 2 of them in the race. Tidy so far down to turn 8. No spinners there, but perseverance at the front put Edoardo Liberati into the lead ahead of the man from pole position, Sebastian Balthazar. Dean Stoneman's gone from 5th up into 3rd place, so he really benefited in the various sortings out in those first few corners. But the first 2 cars already starting to make a little bit of a break there. Kevin Russell has fallen down a position. Boccolacci actually up into, I thought he gained a position or 2. He's up into 4th place in our camera car. That's car number 11 up into 4th place. Really, really good start from him. Top runner in Pro-Am at the moment is his teammate Damiano Fioravanti, but 1st and 2nd starting to pull their way clear from Dean Stoneman. Martin Lechman bringing up the rear. He started last, still in last position. A few drivers kicking up the dirt as they go wide over the curbing. Oh, number 66 going particularly wide there at turn 16, but at the front of the field, Sebastian Balthazar falling back onto the nose of Dean Stoneman. Stoneman's got number 11 in behind. That's Dorian Boccolacci. In behind him, Kevin Russell in number 9 for Target Racing. It's really bunching up, but for race leader Edoardo Liberati, 0.6 of a second to the good over Sebastian Balthazar. Then there's a 0.4 of a second gap back to Boccolacci. 1st, 2nd and 3rd they are. The driver who really seemed to lose out was Vito Postiglione, the most experienced of all of the Lamborghini racers. Started right at the sharp end, but has fallen back to 5th. They'll have the racecraft to go back. He'll also have a teammate who can fight back. But actually, is there a problem for Postiglione? I thought the car looked a little bit low to the ground. Challenged now. Gosh, Ronaldo Motorsport hanging on there, Dean Stoneman, but really being pushed hard in that battle for 3rd place by Dorian Boccolacci. Kevin Russell in 5th, may be able to gain a position if they keep on racing like that. But keep an eye on Vito Postiglione, car number 44. He's lost 3 positions since the start of the race, and I sense he was actually slowing, but something doesn't look quite right with 44. Could be my eyes. Don't forget, it is getting dark, but I am getting older. Edoardo Liberati still leading the race, still very, very busy. This is the battle for 3rd place. Still the tail, says Bonaldi Motorsport, so it still means Dean Stoneman is ahead of Dorian Boccolacci, and this fight is letting the first 2 just eke a little bit of an advantage. And now Kevin Russell, number 9, really starting to push Boccolacci in 4th place, trying to get up to 3rd. Very busy indeed, but for the first 2, just making a break. 1.2 seconds between Liberati and Sebastian Balthazar, but then 2 seconds back to Stoneman. As we see, Stoneman is very, very busy indeed in the offing. He's being pushed super hard. Jonathan Chicotto in car number 7. He's gained a position since the start, running in 7th place overall in number 7. Leading car in Pro-Am is still Damiano Fioravanti for Oregon team in 11th place overall. Leading driver in Am is Target Racing's Massimo Mantovani. He's driving the race solo. Let's take a look at the start again. Just marginal advantage for Edoardo Liberati. Got his nose in front of Sebastian Balthazar. In fact, Vito Postiglione in the bright green car was really on the tail of our pole starter, and maybe lost out accordingly, maybe got a little bit too close and had to cede a bit of ground down into the first turn, but Liberati duked it out around the outside. It looked as though Sebastian Balthazar might be able to fight back into turn 3, but hanging on around the outside with slightly the faster line at turn 3 was enough to keep Liberati in the lead of the race. So good, clean, tidy opening lap, but certainly some elbows out driving into that opening corner of the race, and it really, really worked for Edoardo Liberati. His advantage was minimal in the run to turn 1, and then immediately that feeds into turn 2, but he did just enough to stay in front of the race, get in the front and stay there. Balthazar will have learnt a lesson there, if only how not to race these cars, but how to race them here at Misano. It's compromise through turns 1 and 2, but the best compromise went to Liberati. That's why he's leading the race. 1.4 seconds to the good he is now. And the gap back to third place to Dean Stoneman is 2.5 seconds. So the first two are getting away. Another half-second gain. And actually Stoneman just being bought a little bit of time in third place, because now Boccalacci is really being monstered by Kevin Russell. Russell in 5th place, who's got Vito Postiglione right under his rear wing. So nothing wrong with Postiglione's car. Maybe it was my eyes in the falling gloom. And number 7 behind him, Jonathan Cecotto. Well, when I said behind, was almost alongside. As they go onto the infield straight through turn 6, under the slight kink under the bridge. And then down to the double apex of turn 8. Postiglione now realises he really is being pushed by Kevin Russell, and that gives a tiny bit of breathing space to Alberto Di Folco, who is running in 5th place overall. It's been a tiny little start from Di Folco. Fireworks may follow. In fact, I've been talking about Kevin Russell. They've changed the graphic, so maybe there was a mistake on the graphic. But what we can see is we look at a replay at the start. The Urus leading the field around 23 cars. Now we're taking a little look, and I've been told there might have been a bit of contact before the start of the race. Balthazar on the right-hand side of your screen. No contact between the first two there. Liberati on the outside. Vito Postiglione got very close indeed behind the tail of the pole man. Couldn't see any contact there, but I'll leave it to the race officials. And there, running very, very wide indeed, was driver of car number 30, one of many from Life at Motorsport. That was Elias Niskanen, or was it Mikko Escalainen? It was Mikko Escalainen, vice versa, one of the Finnish racers in this event. No damage done, but position was lost by running too wide there. Start procedure still under investigation, but that's a standard message. It always is under investigation in any race these days until they've checked everything and seen that all is clear. Doesn't need an incident to make them check it out. Drivers being very good at the tail end of the field about not riding too hard over the curves at turn 16. They know they can get penalised if they do so, if they put all 4 wheels out over the curbing. Edoardo Liberati now 1.7 seconds clear of Sebastian Balthazar. He's starting to pull clear, again just over a third of a second on that last lap in the lead of the race. Now 2.6 seconds back to Dean Stoneman. Importantly for Stoneman, he's got almost a second of an advantage over Dorian Boccalacci, so he's got a tiny bit of breathing space. Will he be able to do anything about those in front? No, he's about 0.3 of a second slower than them in clear racing, so they will continue to pull away unless they've gone too hard too soon on their rubber. Number 14 is the sister Oregon car. That's Damiano Fioravanti, still leading the Pro-Am class, down in 17th place overall. He's got Vincent Schwartz just a 1/10 of a second behind him in that battle. It's the Conrad Motorsport car. Vincent Schwartz pushing very hard indeed. That's the car that's turquoise with the black wings. Conrad Motorsport has run that race livery since decades ago, but it's great. I love consistent race liveries. It really helps commentators, helps the fans know what they're looking at, and also understand the history, be able to link them to the other cars and drivers who competed for Conrad Motorsport over the years. So certainly a very, very tight battle in the Pro-Am class. Next car in that grouping in the Pro-Am class is not Massimo Mantovani. He's in the Am class. He's the Am class leader, and he's not that far down the track behind them, just 1.5 seconds back behind the number 28. Look, 53 Mantovani racing for Target Racing, but he's in the Am class. These cars in front of him are Pro-Am, so big up the driver to hold on to them. But race leader Edoardo Liberati now 2.1 seconds clear on that lap alone. He gained another 0.3 of a second, so it's over half a second gained in 2 laps. Maybe he's comfortable with the tyres, maybe he's most comfortable with the fact he's leading the race, getting all that cooling air, or coolish air, through his radiators, but he also might be particularly comfortable on his tyres. Wonderful dramatic shots, those glowing brake discs, but the gap is starting to increase between him and the pole starting racer at the front, who was briefly at the front of the field, Sebastian Balthazar. Balthazar doing a great job. I'm afraid our graphic on the left-hand side of the screen is slightly confusing there. It's had a little bit of a jumble. It's got Laurent Jenny leading the race, and I can assure you he is not doing that, and nor is Gerhard van der Horst in first place. I can tell you quite simply it's Edoardo Liberati leading the race from Sebastian Balthazar. Fantastic battle. Third place at the moment, Dean Stoneman escaping. Here's the battle for fourth place. The pink, yellow and green car from Oregon team still in the hands of Dorian Boccolacci, but he's under so much pressure. Di Folco tucked in behind, Vito Postiglione in behind him as well. Or is it Kevin Russell? Keep trying to see which driver is in that Target Racing example running in 5th place. Certainly Vito Postiglione in behind the bright green car from Imperiale Racing. Oh dear, running very, very wide indeed. The number 9 car, that's not what you'd want to be doing at this point in the race. Run wide, you can pick up all sorts of debris on the outside of the circuit. Tyre pickup is not a good thing at this point in the race. Just over 10 minutes gone, but it feels almost like an entirely different race. There was still light in the sky, not a lot, but there was still light in the sky at the start. Still a tiny bit in the background, but the sun has long since gone down over the hills, the small hills, the low hills to the west of the circuit. To the right of the circuit is the Adriatic Sea, but all will be in full darkness very soon indeed. The spotlighting, the floodlighting over the circuit is strong, but you certainly go from patches of light into the dark, and as it goes on, and maybe particularly when the second drivers take over after the pit stops, it might lead to a positioning problem for a driver as he tries to place a car into a corner, and he could then run wide accordingly. But right now, I must say, you look at the lights, certainly the investment at the circuit has been fantastic in terms of the floodlighting. Not as bright as daylight, but certainly all the important points on the circuit are lit by lights. Down the straights, not so many lights, not needed. You've got the lights of the cars. It's when you get to the turning point, the braking zone, all those vital points that the light is really very, very good indeed. So Edoardo Liberati leading the race. The advantage is no longer 2 seconds. It's 3.3 seconds last time around. 2.2 seconds between Balthazar in second and Dean Stoneman in third. And Stoneman's now 1.4 seconds to the good over Dorian Boccolacci. So bit by bit, the British driver has escaped from French racer Boccolacci, but Boccolacci's been very, very busy indeed. He's either got Kevin Russell or Alberto Di Folco. I'm still trying to work out which in the car right on his tail, but it's definitely Vito Postiglione on the tail, so the two of them in 6th place overall. Top car in Pro-Am is Damiano Fioravanti, now running in 11th place. Car number 14, look for that same livery as Boccolacci's. Car 41 getting a little bit monstered there. That's Raul Guzman. Been battling very, very hard indeed with Jonathan Cecotto. And in behind Guzman, Max Weering, another 2 seconds down the track in car number 61 from Johan Kraan Motorsport, team that ran him in Supercar Challenge in the Netherlands last year, and with a great effect. Vito Postiglione, look out for him. Car number 44, won here last year with the teammate he's driving with this year, Kiko Galbiati, but just cannot find a way past that entry number 9 from Target Racing. Listed as Kevin Russell on one of my set of graphics, and Vito and Alberto Di Folco on the other. Let's go with the ones on the screen, that it's Kevin Russell. Light conditions changing all the time. Race order not changing all the time, because our race leader Edoardo Liberati stroking his way clear. 3.786 seconds to the good at the front of the field. Sebastian Balthazar nearly 2 seconds clear of Dean Stoneman. That's settling down, but Stoneman in turn just pulling ever further clear of Boccolacci. Drive-through penalty for car number 6. Unfortunate indeed. And you know who that is? It's Edoardo Liberati. It's our race leader. So maybe he did get the jump at the start. He certainly got his nose ahead when he got down to turn 1. There was a suggestion there was a contact before the start of the race. I didn't see it. Okay, conditions were getting dark, but something untoward. He either did a jump start or there was contact with presumably the pole starter, Sebastian Balthazar. But come what may, drive-through penalty, an absolute disaster. Yes, he's sitting on an advantage of best part of 4 seconds, but I tell you what, you lose an awful lot more than that going down the pit lane at Misano. It's a short run into the pits, but a really long run out of them. A curving pit exit that takes you all the way around to the exit of turn number 3, and his advantage, 3.4 seconds, actually lost a little bit of his advantage on that lap. He's going to disappear. He'll be behind the last car of the field as it comes around about now. That's not the last of the field. The last ones we can see onto the start-finish straight. For the pole man, suddenly he's going to be back in the lead of the race when the car that's leading, Edoardo Liberati's car from BS Racing, comes in to serve that drive-through penalty. So by trying to achieve a small margin of advantage, it's really backfired and gone the other way. Unfortunately for Liberati, he will be ruining that. Team boss Vincenzo Sospiri will certainly be most upset. Car leading the Pro-Am class, been doing a great job now in 11th place, has been for a while. Damiano Fioravanti for Oregon team, but he's actually had a good couple of laps and he's dropped Vincent Schwartz off his tail. Just remember last time we looked at them, they were 0.2 of a second apart, but for the Oregon team with its bright metallic pink and nose and orange, yellowy orange middle and metallic green tail, it's looking very good indeed. Leading the Pro-Am class and 4th overall for Dorian Boccolacci, which of course with this number 6 race leader having to come in and serve a drive-through penalty, it will become effective 3rd place. So that's looking like it could be a very good return for the Oregon team. So how long has the signal been passed over to our race leader? Long enough for him to heed it, and Edoardo Liberati's coming in not for a pit stop. Pit window's not yet open. It's to serve a drive-through penalty in the race order. 1, 2, 3, 4. The next 5 cars are gone up the start-finish straight. They'll be through and out of turn 3 long before Edoardo Liberati can get through the pit lane, staying on the speed limiter. And as you look, he comes down the pit lane. That sees he's about to pass the final garage, and then the pit lane arcs to the left and then turns all the way around to the right. And still the field is coming through. You can see their brake lights. They approach turn number 1, reflected in the upper stories of the pit building, and still waiting for the white line to be passed where he can put the hammer down. In an earlier race, we saw one of the drivers not managing to turn right quite enough as he left the pits, clattering the pit exit barrier. I don't think we'll have that mistake from Edoardo Liberati. His big mistake was earlier in the race, before the start of the race. Procedural error, maybe there was contact, but for Sebastian Balthazar, he's not interested in debating that at all. Lost out in the run to the first corner, but he's definitely leading the race now. 2.3 seconds to good over Dean Stoneman, and now he's got clear track ahead of him. He's got nobody to look at. I suppose that's also good for his psyche, not only leading the race now, but not looking at somebody who was pulling away from him, as Liberati had been. Bit by bit, about 1/3 of a second every lap, the Italian was pulling away from the German. But right now, Balthazar is revelling in being in the lead of this race. Let's take a look at the restart one more time. Safety car is at the front of the field. It's going through turn 16, waiting to accelerate. The prerogative is with neither of these drivers. They have to be side by side. Look at the lights on the start gantry. Still red, and it looks as though maybe possibly slightly prematurely on the left. Can't really see too easily from the rear shot that Edoardo Liberati just got going a little bit ahead of the pole starter. Might be fractions of a second, but he's now had the disaster of having had to serve that drive-through penalty. I'm looking to see how far down the order he has fallen. Certainly Sebastian Balthazar leading the race, but we'll only know at the end of the next lap exactly where the driver who took that lead, Edoardo Liberati, slots in. You see him 14th on the list of drivers. I'm just waiting for the next timing interval, because obviously he had crossed the start finish line to trip that beam in the pit lane, but I think 14th might be actually about right, but he's got an awful lot to do to get up towards the points. So as we said, everyone behind move up 1 position. That means Sebastian Balthazar leading the race, Dean Stoneman in 2nd place for Benaldi Motorsport. He's 2.5 seconds down, but more than 1.5 seconds clear of Oregon team's Dorian Boccolacci. Vito Postiglione, who had been stuck in 6th, of course, he's been promoted in number 44 for Imperiali Racing up into 5th. But he's sort of falling away from the tail of the Target Racing entered car in front of him. Drivers in the pit lane will have their suits, boots, helmets and gloves on, waiting to take over. They want to put them on as late as they possibly can to stay as cool as they can for as long as they can. But pit window opens in precisely 1 minute from now. It's a 50-minute race. You have a 10-minute pit window between 30 minutes remaining in the race, and the last one has to be made before 20 minutes to the end of the race has come up on the clock at the top of the screen. Sebastian Balthazar, his advantage, 2.8 seconds now. Another good lap from him, stretching little bit by little bit clear of Dean Stoneman. Dorian Boccolacci in third place. So the main change of order has come from the race leader being given the lead, because the driver who got the jump of him, the driver from the outside the front rows, had to serve a drive-through penalty. Edoardo Liberati looking for his position in the race. He is still in 14th position, about to cross the start-finish line. See if he can gain any places before the race is out. Kevin Russell still in 4th place. That's a really, really good run for him in Target Racing's number 9, tucked under the rear wing. But Dorian Boccolacci's been making no mistakes at all. So that's a really, really impressive run for him, holding down that 3rd place. Pit window open. Fully dark at the circuit. Marco Simoncelli at Misano. The headlights picking up the tyre debris at the side of the circuit. Race leader number 2, he's got a car not far ahead of him, but for Sebastian Balthazar, super impressive to take pole position by 0.2 of a second ahead of Edoardo, the far more experienced Edoardo Liberati. But now he's experiencing traffic, hasn't found it where he wants it. In fact, do you ever find traffic where you want it? But he's managed to negotiate the second of the Imperiale cars, and now dives straight into the pit lane. So he's very equitable in this 50-minute race. In fact, he's doing less than the lion's share. He's come in almost as early as he possibly could. In fact, it was as early as he possibly could to hand over to Marcus Pavrud, another driver very short on Lamborghini experience, a driver who knows the team, Leipert Motorsport, but was racing in GT4 for them last year. So a big sea change for both of these drivers. But Balthazar started from pole, has brought it in from the lead of the race, but was given a helping hand by the VS Racing entry of Edoardo Liberati, having to serve that drive-through penalty. He's way down, but he has been lapping very, very impressively. It will work its way up the order, but Liberati's time at the wheel is coming to an end, at least within the next 8.5 minutes. Who's going to be next to blink? Dean Stoneman leading the race by just over 2 seconds from Dorian Boccolacci. They've worked their way forward, but certainly with the car that had been leading having to serve a drive-through penalty, the car that then took over the lead having reported in for its pit stop, that is it, still there sitting in the pit lane at a standstill, waiting for the signal to be given to go out and rejoin the race. But for Leipert Motorsport, it's looking very, very good indeed for their number 2 car. But it's all about 2 drivers in this race. It's about having your drivers as a well-balanced and quick pairing. It's one thing having a quick driver and a slower driver. They're going to lose out to a pairing that's got 2 quick drivers. Of course, simple maths. Fully dark at Misano. And for the drivers who've been in since the start of the race, it's not that difficult. It's the ones who come out into full darkness. The drivers who've done the first 25 minutes or so of this race have become accustomed to the light falling on every lap. But at the circuit, you can see, certainly on the start-finish straight, plenty of floodlights. And at other points around the track, it's pretty bright as well. But there are points down the back straight where it feels like full darkness. Not for long. You're travelling at great speed, but the track doesn't stay straight for long either, so it's always complicated at Misano. Dean Stoneman is driving solo, so he can choose. He's not going to upset anyone. He can decide when he wants to come in from the lead of the race, whereas almost all the other drivers at the front of the field have a teammate to hand over to. The best place to choose your pit strategy is from the lead of the race, but don't forget the car that was in front of him, the number 2 entry, is back in the field. Marcus Pavrud, young Norwegian racer, has taken it over. He's listed down in 17th place, but he was one of the very first cars to make a pit stop, and he's sure to come charging up the order from there. It's just a question of how he's adapted not only to racing a Lamborghini after moving up from GT4, but how good he's doing it in the full dark conditions here at Misano. Don't forget, almost all the testing is done in daylight hours. And there is Pavrud in number 2, looking neat, tidy. It's amazing how many drivers, if they make a mistake, it's on their first lap out of the pits. They're just trying to find their markers very hard in the dark. But again, the floodlighting very good indeed here. Seems to get better by the year. on the start-finish straight. All the floodlighting very, very bright indeed, almost dazzles them, I'd suggest. Dean Stoneman continues on another lap. The top 6 runners have stayed out there. Vito Postiglione has just pitted to hand over to Kiko Galbiati, but the order is Dean Stoneman, Dorian Boccolacci, Kevin Russell, Jonathan Cecotto, Raoul Guzman and young Dutch racer Max Weering in 6th place. But they do owe us a pit stop. They've still got 5 and a bit minutes in which to do that. And if they're happy with their form at the moment and feel they're the quicker driver, then of course they'll stay out as late as they possibly can before diving in to the pits before the pit window closes. Still 5.5 minutes until that happens. Dean Stoneman, his advantage 1.6 seconds. He lost a little bit of ground on that lap. In fact, no, a tenth of a second. In fact, went the other way over Dorian Boccolacci. It's been going a little bit one way, a little bit the other. But for Dean Stoneman and Benaldi Motorsport, car number 33 leading the way. But they've got no new tricks to play because it's Dean Stoneman who's doing the second stint as well, whereas some of their rivals have, almost all their rivals are in the process of changing their drivers. One thing I just want to point out is the fact Edoardo Liberati's been in the pits, but not for a pit stop. He was leading the race by 3 and a bit seconds, but he's now up to 7th place overall. Of course, he's among the drivers who have officially made a pit stop, have made one for a driver change. But number 6 really pressing on. All he can do is try and make up for having to serve that drive-through penalty. Whether that gets him into the top 10 remains to be seen, but his lap time's very impressive indeed. Now, at the start of the race, it's car number 33. Dean Stoneman comes in to hand over to, well, himself. He's driving solo in this race. Just a little something on the screen. When you see a purple timing block, that means someone set the fastest sector. That was Karel Bass. He's taken over the car started by his fellow Pole, Andrzej Lewandowski. Fastest in first sector, fastest in second sector. This is a car that started 16, is way down the order, but it's going to come up the order. And certainly Karel Bass, who's taken pole for tomorrow's race. How high can he go? So we've got Liberati coming up through the field, but he has to hand over to his teammate, whereas number 2 is now fully in the hands of Karel Bass. He's taken it over from his teammate. It's all him through to the end. Whereas for Liberati, he of course has to hand it over to Oli Kangas. And with no disrespect, certainly the faster of those drivers is Edoardo Liberati. Or Oli, prove us wrong. Now that seems, couldn't see it as a problem on the far side of the car for Benaldi Motorsport, but there's no driver change. Don't be fearful about that. Dean Stoneman staying on board. No, it was simply the car moving around as all conditions were checked on the tightness of that front left tyre. The one that wheel takes all the pounding around this circuit. The loading even on the back straight. There's a left-hand kink, another left-hand kink, and then turn 13 and turn 14, lots of pressure on the outside front tyre. So of course you check it. Dorian Boccolacci obviously in the lead of the race since Dean Stoneman pitted. The Target Racing runner Kevin Russell in behind, and Raoul Guzman now up to 3rd. Dean Stoneman in from the lead of the race, but do expect Marcus Paverud, when all this has shuffled around, to be up in the prominent position. When you're trying to leave or come into the pits, you don't want the car in front to be limping in slowly. This looks like, I know you have to stay within the speed limit, but so those two, one of them seems to be slightly holding the other one up. Couldn't quite see which they were behind the barriers, but it's such a long run until they can clear pit exit and finally get the hammer down. Must be so frustrating, but it's the same for everyone. There is pit exit. Looking forward through the windscreen of our race leader, Dorian Boccolacci, car number 11, Oregon team. What he doesn't want in his final few laps before he comes in. Pit window still open for another 2 minutes. You can come in this lap, possibly squeak it to the next lap. He didn't want a slower runner in front of him. And certainly when he's trying to gain a bit of time, well, he just dive up the inside. It's car number 7 that was in front of him. And that's Jonathan Cecotto. But hold on, of course, there's a difference because Cecotto has served a pit stop. So there's a lap difference. And for the race leader, Dorian Boccolacci, doesn't want to drop a tenth of a second here or there. So that was frustrating. But you see it time and time again that when either a driver is trying to just maximise their last few laps before their pit stop, before handing over, they get obstructed. Or again, when they just come out on fresh rubber. But, you know, it's the same for all of them. You just have to hope your luck's in. 44, Kiko Galbiati at the wheel. He's taken over from Vito Postiglione. I like Postiglione. He's got other cars around him. It's been a very busy race for the Imperial Racing team, but they were winners here last year. But at the moment, in dives Dorian Boccolacci from the lead of the race. He's going to be followed by Raoul Guzman, 21.11. Anybody else who's still going round will not make it round in time to make their pit stop. Did Raul Guzman go into the pit lane? I'm looking to see if the number 41 Target Racing Lamborghini has gone in, or if it's gone on. He's not going to get round in 59 seconds. Fastest lap of the race is around 1 minute 34. So let's hope they did dive in, and I have noticed. Yes, indeed they did. Just took a little bit of a while for the timing screen to collect that. Already Kiko Galbiati picking up positions. Doesn't muck around after taking over from Vito Postiglione. Key moments. Pit window still open for another 30 seconds. Just looking down, I think all the runners have made their pit stops. And of course, don't forget VS Racing. Oli Cangas has taken number 6 over from Eduardo Liberati. But of course, that's the car that has a 2 next to its number in the number of pit stops because it served a drive-through penalty. So the number 6 VS Racing Charger, can it get into the top 10? Oli Cangas will really have to push on in that to see if he can make it up there. It's going to be a big ask. By small margins, the discrepancy, whatever inaccuracy there was in the start procedure of VS Racing that allowed Eduardo Liberati to take the lead of the race, they've taken the damage in spades in terms of their race position by having to serve the drive-through penalty. Just waiting for everything with the pit stop window now being closed. You're allowed to be in the pits as long as you got in before. There was only 20 minutes remaining in the race. Where is everybody going to slot back in? Final pit. Still see some lights. Cars still serving their late pit stops, but at the top of the order, it looks like it's going to be number 2, Marcus Pavarud, going back into the lead of the race for Lippert Motorsport. The car was started on pole position by Sebastian Balthazar. Who else would have gained in the sorting out behind? Also, Kiko Galbiati has got up into effective second position. There might be some others who try and slot in ahead of him, but winners in both the races here last year, he and Vito Postiglione, they could be celebrating again this time around. Number 7, Patrick Liddy, an American racer, does a real star of the North American Lamborghini Super Trofeo series, and he's got plenty of charge in him as he really gets in the thick of the battle. And in fact, the cars seem to be running in pairs, which is very good news for the fans of us here as we observe proper racing action in the dark here at Misano. Number 11 is going to be very well placed indeed. Kevin Ghilardoni has taken it over. He's so well placed, in fact, by that late pit stop by his teammate Dorian Boccolacci, that has come out in the lead of the race. I thought he'd come out in second place, but the car number 2 is in second place. That is Marcus Pavarud. By the skin of his teeth, we've now got Ghilardoni leading the race for the Oregon team. But boy, oh boy, is he being pushed hard by driver in second place, number 2, Marcus Pavarud, the car that did lead on the little run down to the first corner, but was passed by a better starting Eduardo Liberati. Got the lead given back when Liberati's car had to serve a drive-through penalty, and now Marcus Pavarud learning as he goes. He was racing GT4 cars here 12 months ago for the same team, for Lippert Motorsport, but now he's got to see what he can do about Kevin Ghilardoni. Can he get to the front of the race? Can the Norwegian racer really make a name for himself here? Ghilardoni also short on Lamborghini experience, taken over from Dorian Boccolacci, but he too was racing in the GT4 series last year. So 2 drivers stepping up to very different cars, much more flamboyant looking, the great big wings, plenty of bodywork of sheer aerodynamic intent on these Lamborghinis. Very sleek indeed. Third place, Milos Pavlovic, so much Lamborghini experience. He's 3rd for Target Racing. So it's Oregon from Lippert, from Target Imperiale. Kiko Galbiati in 4th place overall. But our race leader is carrying our onboard camera. The fact he's looking at the tail of someone else means that there is someone he wants out of the way. But is that actually Marcus Pavarud who's just taken the position? Blink and you miss it, but I think we've had a change for the lead. If it's the red nose, it's going to be Marcus Pavarud coming towards us. Look, see, no, it's so hard to pick out. Yes, Pavarud has made the move. Ghilardoni back into second place. So Pavarud showing serious intent. Not only has he taken the lead on this lap, but he's managing to pull away. So we're looking forward to a replay. Well, down into turn 8, the classic infield dive up into that double left-hander. And I must say, Ghilardoni was very good indeed. He could have really started to pull across, slightly caught by not being fully attentive there, but Marcus Pavarud decided when you make a move, you make a move. Now, can Ghilardoni fight back? I must say, Pavarud looks like he's slightly pulling clear. Suddenly The pink, yellow and green car is in second place. Kevin Ghilardoni's got Milos Pavlovic all over his tail. The black and white Target racing car. And Pavlovic, so much experience. He was European Lamborghini champion back 6 years ago. There it is on board. Well, that was neat. That was tidy. Ghilardoni did not move his line. Maximum respect for him. He could see the momentum was such that it was going to be pointless. It could have led to 2 damaged cars. But a really, really good move down into turn number 8. Same corner a lap later, but that's not a move for position. That's just trying to put another car between himself and Ghilardoni, and does so not only easily, but Ghilardoni now under serious attack, looking one way, looking the other. Milos Pavlovic trying to get up the inside into turn 9. No, the door isn't left open, but there is a tail ender in front of them who is slower. And oh dear, Ghilardoni has suddenly lost position. Maybe going to lose another. Galbiati goes past him as well in the green car from Imperiale. Oh, that's been cruel. It's one of the Conrad Motorsport cars in front of them. They're putting a lap on him. But suddenly it's Milos Pavlovic saying, thank you very much, I'm going through, and taking the position. Kiko Galbiati also going past the Oregon car. So in the space of a lap and about 3 corners, the Oregon car has lost 3 positions. What was first has become 4th. Unlucky for Ghilardoni. He will. We've got a spinner though. It's not Galbiati. I think it's one of the sister cars. Bright green. If it says 44 on the door, which it doesn't, it says a different number. I can't quite focus on. Number 21. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. That has gone round. That's Takis Spiliopoulos, the Greek driver with a Swiss nationality now, and he's running in the AM class, and what had been a good AM class position has been somewhat scuppered there. Gone for that rotation. So Ghilardoni, can he hang on to 4th place now? He's got another Target racing car all over his tail. Not so long ago, passed by Milos Pavlovic. And now it's the sister car of Alberto Di Folco's looking to make a move as well. And in behind number 33, Dean Stoneman. Don't forget, he was fleetingly the race leader as the cars pitted on different laps. He's running solo. He's going to be feeling the heat of the cockpit more than the drivers who took over at the pit stops. He's down in 6th place. He's got Patrick Liddy about 4 seconds further back. So Stoneman is able to attack Alberto Di Folco, who in turn is really putting the pressure on Kevin Ghilardoni. Massimo Mantovani, leader in AM. He ran 13th in the first half of the race. He's running 13th now. And he's got a tiny advantage, 19 seconds over Buson-Ginian's Giuseppe Fascicolo. So he's got this one in the bag. He can stroke it. He can stroll it home. But it's been a great run from Mantovani. He's been very impressive this weekend in the AM class. The Pro-Am leader, by the way, is Carol Bash, up to get this. The car started 16th. He's got it up to 8th, his next target. And he's gaining by nearly 1 3/4 seconds a lap is Patrick Liddy. The clock has 13 minutes left on it, so he's got time to catch him, and he's got pole for tomorrow's race. There's the second car in the AM class, the Buson-Ginian entry. Now in the hands of Giuseppe Fascicolo, had been started by Claude-Yves Gosselin, and still, unfortunately, 21 sideways at the side of the circuit. So clearly for Spiliopoulos, the engine has stalled, or there is some problem or other. The car cannot get going. Car that really is going at the moment is Marcus Pavrud, leading the race by 1.7 seconds over Milos Pavlovic, but Pavlovic in 41 is giving chase, and with serious intent. Kiko Galbiati, green car in your shot there, going over the curbs at turn 16, chasing after him. He's listed as half a second down. It looks slightly more than that on the start-finish straight, it must be said. Galbiati 3rd, Ghilardoni, don't forget, he led fleetingly. He's in 4th, Di Folco's 5th, and Dean Stoneman continues to chip away at his advantage in 6th place, closing on 5th, who in turn is closing on 4th. Just how we like it. Number 16 now in the hands of Carol Bash, the driver, setting the pace faster than every other driver on the circuit. The best of the rest lapping in the 1:35s. Carol Bash below a 1:34. Super impressive in the white, blue and yellow Vincenzo Sospiri Racing example. Fastest lap of the race for him, and he's taken 3 seconds almost off Patrick Liddy ahead of him. So he is coming. There it is, 1:33.994 seconds. Nobody else in recent laps below 1:35. So anybody in front of him is going to be a sitting duck. He's got 11.5 minutes remaining. A few places will come. He'll probably get past Patrick Liddy. He's then got to find another 5 seconds, and then he'll get on the trail of that battle that runs from 4th to 6th place. Ghilardoni, Alberto Di Folco and Dean Stoneman. So he's got to pick off car number 7. He should manage to do that. He's got the pace. He's got to find the place to use that pace, though. Is he going to do it down into turn 1? Slightly risky. No, I think he's going to be sensible. Maybe he'll wait to turn 8, or what do I know? See, I said it was risky. Had a little look into turn 1. Patrick Liddy thinking, you know, I didn't travel from the States to let you dive up the inside. So he's going to hold off for now. But let's see who's going to make a better exit of turn 6 onto the infield straight. Through turn 4 they go, into turn 5 they go. Up the inside, oh, actually maybe just a lack of vision up that was turn 4 rather than turn 5. This is turn 5. And the move was made. I thought it was going to come by a good line there for number 16. Turn 6 and then make the move down to turn number 8, the double left-hander, but didn't have to wait that long. Place gained up to 7th. Marcus Pavrud leading by 1.8 seconds. The fastest driver in the field has just moved up to 7th place. That's Carol Bash in the second of the VS Racing cars. And don't forget the sister car, well, in fact, the first of the VS Racing cars, because the sister car is in the hands of Ollie Kangas, is down in 12th position. Story of a car that started 2nd with a drive-through penalty, falling to 12th, and one that started 16th with no drive-through penalty, now up to 7th place on a charge. Super close, though, between Pavlovic and Kiko Galbiati. Galbiati starting to close in. We're dealing tenths of a second one way, tenths another. 10 minutes remaining. This race was 50 minutes in duration. 40 of those have elapsed, but our first 3 cars all in shot down the start-finish straight. The gap between first and second, 1.6 seconds. Pavarud to Pavlovic. And Kiko Galbiati much, much closer. Just 7/10 of a second down in 3rd place overall. For Kevin Ghilardoni, who led all of these 3 runners, he's fallen back not only to 4th place, but he's another 5 seconds down the track with his mirrors full. Dean Stoneman now in 6th place. He's got ahead of Alberto Di Folco, and Carol Bash is closing in on them super, super fast. He's 4 seconds down, catching all the time. There you can see white number with the black background. That's Pro-Am class leader Carol Bash up into 7th place. Am leader is now Cedric Lima. He's got ahead of Mantovani in recent laps. So the Am leader Cedric Lima by 6 seconds, and he's lapping, well, in fact not as fast as Mantovani. Did Mantovani have a spin? He's certainly still looking good in that class, but he's now 2nd in class. Nighttime racing, it just has an atmosphere, and if ever you attend this event, you can often still feel pretty warm, but then you can just feel the degrees falling off. The sun's gone over the horizon, the sky eventually goes dark, and then you just welcome the cool of a hot Italian evening, and it's just a great place to go racing. Different atmosphere at the moment, of course, with the social distancing and team numbers reduced enormously to enable that to happen, but we're racing again. Hallelujah, celebrate that. And proper racing, 21 and 63, fighting very hard for track position at the moment, but they're not at the sharp end of the field. Cedric Lima is in 63. He's the class leader in the Am class. 21 is a lap further down. So for the Swiss racer, for the Swiss team, for Cedric Lima, also Vitesse, looking very good indeed as we get into the final 8 minutes of the race. What's happening at the front of the field? It's still Marcus Pavrud leading the race, but the gap is only 1.5 seconds. He is being hunted down, and Kiko Galbiati is trying to go with it in 3rd place as well. He's 0.6 of a second down on Pavlovic. It's getting tighter. The first 3 getting closer and closer together. 41 is Milos Pavlovic. 44 in behind is Kiko Galbiati. And at the front of the race, falling back onto their bonnets almost, is the race leader. Pavrud is really starting to struggle. His lap time's falling away a little bit. And that's not 1.5 seconds anymore. It's more like half a second, maybe 0.7 of a second. The gap between first and second. The gap between second and third is even smaller. Kiko Galbiati took 2 wins here last year with his teammate Vito Postiglione. Didn't see any reason to change that. They're racing together again. He's 3rd in this grouping. Can he get past? But look, the clock down into the final 7 minutes of this race. Quick flick across the screens. Carol Bash, it's still in 7th place, leading the Pro-Am class, but he's getting closer and closer to Alberto Di Folco. Di Folco slightly falling off the tail of Dean Stoneman. Stoneman's had a good run in the closing stage of the race. He's now trying to see what he can do about Kevin Ghilardoni, so maybe the British driver can get past the Oregon team car and move up into 4th place. But really, why take your eyes off anything other than the lead battle, because it is getting super, super tight. 6/10 of a second between first and second, and the same between second and third. 1.2 seconds covering the top 3 runners. Pavrud is hanging on in the lead of the race. And that was very unfortunate. The lead battle got a little bit broken up there. I'm afraid one of the tail enders got in their way. That brought a little bit of an advantage for Pavrud ahead of Pavlovich. He went down to 0.6 of a second. It's getting closer to a second again. And certainly the one who looks as though he'd lost the most ground was Kiko Galbiati in the background. But it's as the cars were 1 lap ago, not as they were at the start of this lap. It's closing in all over again, but that was just a little advantage brought for Marcus Pavrud, who know the clock is running down, but he know the 2 cars behind him, the 2 drivers of the cars behind him, are faster than him. They are able to catch him. Haven't quite caught him now. There may be a bit more traffic, but maybe not. Can't rely on that. And this first 3 runners, it's still Marcus Pavrud from Milos Pavlovich. They will close in again, and in third place, Kiko Galbiati will definitely be pushing. But the clock keeps ticking away, and maybe Pavrud can hang on. The Norwegian racer will definitely be feeling the heat in the cockpit today. Might be getting cooler outside, but the race action is getting hotter and hotter in this, the first of 2 races for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, the European Lamborghini series. What's the gap? 0.6 of a second last time around. 0.8, nearly 0.9 of a second to the good. That was such an advantage that was given to Pavrud, and he's making the most of it. And in behind, look how tight it is. 4th place, Kevin Ghilardoni right in behind. We've got Alberto Di Folco. Di Folco makes the move. Ghilardoni loses a position. No, sorry, my eyes deceive me. Ghilardoni in number 11 is still in 4th place. In behind, Alberto Di Folco. Carol Bash, White's car is now up into 6th, leading the Pro-Am class handsomely. Could get up into 4th place. It's been a fabulous drive from the driver who's going to start from pole position tomorrow. But his car started 16th today, and yet there it is, harrying. Got into the top 6, way clear in the Pro-Am class. Surely he's going to gain another position or so. But actually, Ghilardoni just got bought a little bit of an advantage there, biding his time. Number 9 nearly being shoved out of the way. That's Alberto Di Folco, and another position has been gained by Carol Bash. He has a different rule of physics to apply to his car, to his rivals. He's taken pole for tomorrow's race, and he's determined to pick them off. These are front-running cars in the top 6, and he's picking them off at will. Super, super impressive drive by Carol Bash. Another person who's gaining ground by setting really decent lap times much further down the field is Loris Spinelli, sharing the Van der Horst Motorsport Lamborghini with Gerard Van der Horst, running in the Pro-Am class, now up into third position in class, ripping into the advantage of the cars ahead of him. So that's, but he's only up into 12th. So while he's making really good lap times, it's going to help him in the Pro-Am class, but not in terms of overall running. Marcus Pavrud, can he hang on in the lead of this race? 0.595 of a second is his advantage. Then Milos Pavlovich, then Kiko Galbiati, then Kevin Ghilardoni, who's about to be passed, or is he down into turn 1? Certainly Carol Bash has a look on the way in. In turn 2, it's still the Oregon car in front in that 4th place. Turn 3, looking to have a better exit speed. Surely there isn't the space to get a run and dive up into turn 4. No, he's not looking for it here. Carol Bash stays in 5th place overall, but look on the previous lap, the amount of time he gained on Ghilardoni. Ghilardoni, nice tidy run through turn 6. Now you've got the sprint down to a possible move up the inside into turn 8. Has to be on this lap. He's trying to make it happen, but Ghilardoni's leaving him only half a car's width. But then Ghilardoni realises they would clash if he stayed where he was, and Carol Bash moves up to 4th place overall, extending his advantage in the Pro-Am class. The first 3 cars long gone. They're 9 seconds up the track, but just remember, this car started 16th. It's up to 4th. Car that fell almost to 16th is the number 6 car, but Ollie Kangas has only got that up to 13th. That was after Eduardo Liberati just got a little ahead of himself at the start of the race, had that drive-through penalty, which is the death now in a race as short as 50 minutes. But still the racing goes on. It's full darkness at Misano, certain bits of confusion as lapping takes place, and is anybody gained in that group? Just having a little look. Vito Pastiglione has got ahead. Sorry, that's Marcus Pavrud, who's just lost 2 positions. Didn't see how he suddenly fell back into their path. Caught by Milos Pavlovich, caught and passed as well by Kiko Galbiati. So the race was just that little bit too long for the Norwegian Marcus Pavrud. I think he got caught out in traffic behind a back marker, didn't react as well as he possibly could have done, or maybe he went one way and just guessed wrongly. But suddenly first has become 3rd. So no dream win for Lippert Motorsport. Will it be 3 wins in 3 outings here at Misano for the 44 car. Well, not yet. The clock has 1.5 minutes remaining, but Galbiati is only in second place. Milos Pavlovic could be taking victory in the number 41 entry that he's sharing with Raul Guzman. So the Mexican driver's in the pits. There's nothing he can do. But I must say, it's looking very, very tidy for Milos Pavlovic. Second place is close, but not close enough, surely. Kiko Galbiati. They've been running in close company, but this actually is almost the biggest advantage that Pavlovic has had over Galbiati. Third place, can Pavlovic. Let's have a look at the replays. Very hard to pick out, but well, you can see exactly how compromised Marcus Pavlovic was. He almost had to brake where he didn't want to brake, and he lost not 1 but 2 positions. That was super, super cruel for him. He'd had the 2 chasers, Pavlovic, Galbiati getting closer and closer, and seemed to have weathered the storm, and then unfortunately just losing out to a tail ender, and all that work the Norwegian driver had done just taken away from him. Well, that was really, really cruel form and fortune, but certainly for number 41, Milos Pavlovic, he read the situation really, really well as it unfolded in front of him. So onto the final lap of the race they go. Pavlovic leading by just 1/4 of a second from Kiko Galbiati. That's how close it is. 41 ahead of 44. Marcus Pavlovic another 0.5 of a second down. Can he fight back on this, the final lap? If there's half an incident, there's someone up ahead who's not as quick as they are. There's a back marker. They will catch him around this lap. Through turn 4 they go. They can see him up ahead. Through the left-hander at turn 6. Hopefully the back marker will stay wide when they get down towards turn number 8. He'll stay on the right-hand side of the track. It's car number 22. Kurt Wagner running in the Lamborghini Cup class, but he goes to the inside line. That blocks the race leader, Milos Pavlovic. Gives an opportunity possibly for Kiko Galbiati. But then by hugging the inside line, no help at all to the first 2 cars, and it's not going to help Marcus Pavlovic any at all either. These incidents, these are the moments that can shape a race. It's already shaped it for Marcus Pavlovic. It's taken what could have been a famous victory for him away from him. He'll come home with the podium, which would be a great result, but what could have been, and it could have so easily been reversed with that back marker just then. Anyhow, led on to the final lap. Milos Pavlovic, he's still there with the final few corners to go. Kiko Galbiati. There was a contact down at turn number 14 under braking. There are 16 corners on this circuit. Here's turn 15. It's still Pavlovic in front. He wouldn't have enjoyed that switch, but Galbiati will not make it a win to follow the 2 wins he had here last year. It'll be second place. Vito Pistioni will share that car with him. Will be delighted with that. They wanted victory, but for Marcus Pavlovic, he's just stepped up from GT4 racing, and he stepped up to the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. He's brought his car home in third place. Still a great result, but it is a question of what could have been. Well, what an exciting race there. And just spotted another driver being given a drive-through penalty. That's why Massimo Mantovani lost the lead in the AM class. He had to serve a drive-through penalty, not respecting speed limit in the pit lane, because he had been sitting on a big lead. Doing my housework, top 3, Milos Pavlovic, car number 41. Second place, car 44, Kiko Galbiati. Third, number 2, Marcus Pavlovic. Top in Pro-Am in 4th place, just 6 seconds down of them, Carol Bash. That was a car he took over in 16th place, so he was the star of the second half of the race. He won the Pro-Am class, but the race overall, Milos Pavlovic sharing that with Target Racing, but I think there's a fair bit of under-investigation within that race. Kiko Galbiati in second place. Certainly there was the contact there just at turn 14 on the final lap. One assumes it's that moment. It could have been at turn 13 a couple of laps earlier. Certainly very hard to pick out the cars. They got very close under braking, and that was the moment at which, unfortunately for Marcus Pavlovic with the back marker, putting the car right where he wanted to be, number 2 didn't take the win in the race, but so much incident in the race. Again, night races for the Lamborghini Super Trofeo. It really adds something very, very different to the mix, and plenty to be considering in the course of the action. I'll keep my eye to see if any further messages come up about number 44 being under investigation. But we had 2 drive-through penalties in that race. It cost victory outright, potentially, for the number 6 VS racing car that Ollie Kangas eventually brought home in 13th place. Definitely cost the AM class victory for Massimo Mantovani, but he can blame, in fact, no, at the end he managed to get ahead of Giuseppe Pasquicolo, so he fought his way back. But if you're the only driver in the car, you can only blame yourself. Your teammate can't give you a kicking. You have to do it to yourself, metaphorically. But a great start to the Lamborghini series for 2020, but look how close it was between the front runners. 44 side by side with 41, and later in the race there was contact between the pair of them as well, but at the finish it was Milos Pavlovic first to the line by the smallest of margin, just under half of a second. But an awful lot happening in that race. Late race contact, and that again was 41 being given a shove late in the race. 2 corners to go, the final lap of a 50-minute race, and Kiko Galbiati maybe getting caught out, but the contact was clearly there for all to see. Phew. But looking back to the start of the race 50 minutes ago, there was still light in the sky, but now the only light is the light of glory shining down on Target Racing. Milos Pavlovic building on a decent start from his teammate Raul Guzman, but really pressing on towards the end of the race and coming away with really a very, very good race victory for the Serbian there, pulling into the paddock area behind some buildings that have gone up since I was at the circuit last year, enclosing the paddock, separating it from the race circuit. But number 2, well, disappointment for Marcus Pavrud there, but really I'd say very impressive debut in the Lamborghini series. And for the number 44 car, second at the end of the race, but there may yet be a reduction in their points tally. There's Vito Postiglione going over to say well done, but was it well done? We'll find out when the investigations have been completed. But possible dark cloud on a dark evening at Misano over the car that finished in second place. But I shan't get ahead of myself. In fact, just been escalated. Team manager of car number 44, that was the one that finished in second place, to see the stewards. That's not normally a sign they want to give you a bar of chocolate. Raul Guzman quickly across to the car that was first at the finish, waiting for Milos Pavlovic to climb out. And the Serb probably very happy to climb out as long as he's unplugged everything so he can get out of the confines of a Huracan cockpit. And again, great to see fist bumps, other teammates, other drivers in on the mix. But for Raul Guzman, he's had a chance to cool down, but hot, exciting stuff for those drivers, and maximum point haul for the 41 Target Racing Lamborghini. Victory, second place currently in the hands of the 44 Kiko Galbiati, Vito Postiglione car from Imperiale Racing, but that is under investigation. So maybe Marcus Pavrud, his car started first, may yet at least come away with second place. Currently listed as third, sharing that car with his very, very impressive teammate Sebastian Baltazar. We'll keep an eye on that. Definite victory in the Pro-Am class. Karel Bash fighting from 16th up to 4th overall. So there is the order. Raul Guzman enjoyed the second half of the race because he was out of the cockpit and he was watching Milos Pavlovic in the thick of the battle, taking victory by just under half a second from Kiko Galbiati. Pro-Am honours to 4th place overall to VS Racing, their number 16 entry, and the Am victor, even with the drive-through penalty. Oh no, it's gone back again. Cedric Lima comes out ahead of the Am class. The drive-through penalty just too much for Massimo Mantovani. So he'll be frustrated, but smiles all round at Target Racing. And let's go down to hear from the race-winning pairs of Milos Pavlovic, who brought it home, and the driver who started, Raul Guzman.
Boys, you've just called out the car there and you just said to me, I'm so happy. That was an incredible moment. We were all sat at the edge of our seats as you took that final lunge. 2 positions there, wonderful, well done.
Yeah, well, I'm extremely happy. I mean, I've been away from pro racing for a while, and I got a call from Target. I must say, incredible job by them at the pit stop. He drove great at the first stint, first GT race, right? Yeah. And yeah, I was at the right place at the right moment. I mean, I needed this. I'm so happy.
And for you, Raul, watching that at that final moment, just, willing him through.
Yeah, just incredible moment, My first stint was not great. I was struggling my first GT race, as he said, but here he made a great job, the team made a great job, the pit stop was really good, and we finally made it.
And that gives you incredible confidence going forward in this season?
Yeah, I think it's a great start, and we will keep looking forward.
Step by step.
Step by step, exactly. Congratulations, boys. A very, very well done. Great race.
So the plaudits there, the driver on the left, Milos Pavlovic, but it's well worth just pointing out Raul Guzman has stepped up from a handful of seasons in junior single-seaters, and cars are much bigger, louder, wider, heavier. And he didn't drop the ball at all in that first stint. And Pavlovic back in the cockpit, as he said, after a handful of years not racing at this level, and it's like he's never been away. The speed was there, but the racecraft was what really, really shone through. And certainly very, very close racing action, right the way to 2 corners from the end of the race when he got thumped up the back by the car in second place. Possible contact earlier. A lot of that gets hidden in the dark when you race at Misano in this night race, but certainly really adds something to the championship. And for the drivers tomorrow, it is a different race, but it really will feel like a different race when it's in full sunlight tomorrow at Misano. Certainly a warm, humid day here, but for Target Racing, they'll be very, very pleased that they picked up the phone just very recently and said, Milos, what are you doing in Serbia? Come and race our car. And he's rewarded them royally in this, the first race of the 2020 Lamborghini Super Trofeo Europe. Just looking for any further screens. Still message saying team manager car 44. That was the one that finished second to the race stewards. That's still under investigation. So I can't tell you either way whether that will lead to penalties or otherwise. First, the trophies to be awarded. And it's Milos Pavlovic. No, it's not. Sorry, it's in third place. It's Marcus Pavarud and Sebastian Baltazar. 3-2-1 we will go. That may yet become second place for the Norwegian and the very, very impressive young German who started from pole position. Off we go. Second place for now for Imperial Racing and Kiko Galbiati and Vito Postiglione. Vito, the shorter driver with the silver hair. They took 2 wins here last year. So to them, second place will be slightly disappointing, but it'll be far better than losing that second place if whatever the stewards decide goes against them. But no clouds hanging over Milos Pavlovic and the driver who started, Raul Guzman. They will go up and take the winners' trophies from the table, socially distanced podium. Team applauding them from behind the barricades. They will hold up their race winners' trophies, the Pirelli trophy there as well, the P0 trophy. So first blood of the 2020 championship to Milos Pavlovic and Raul Guzman. So congratulations particularly for Raul stepping up from single-seaters and showing how it's done. So the Italian national anthem rings out for the winning team for Target Racing. Last few photos for the crew at the front, and that crew, of course, Milos Pavlovic and Raul Guzman. Pro-Am honours, Karol Bash sharing number 16 with fellow Pole Andrzej Lewandowski, and the Am honours to the Swiss crew, the Swiss solo driver Cedric Bleimer, who beat the Italians solo driver Massimo Mantovani, and the margin at the end, even with the drive-through penalty from Mantovani, 0.3 of a second, so nearly clawed it back. So in the Pro-Am class, the drivers in third place in the class. Damiano Fioravanti should be there. That's the Oregon team, car number 14 crew, Fioravanti and Lorenzo Bontempelli. Lorenzo, the first of those drivers, leading them off the podium. Second place in the Pro-Am class, Van der Horst Motorsport. Been racing in recent years at Lamborghini Cup class. Gerard Van der Horst and Loris Spinelli, who put in a stunning stint late in the race to propel them all the way up to 9th overall. They're really showing his worth, lapping faster than almost all the front runners. In fact, all bar Karol Bash, who was also in the Pro-Am class, who set the fastest lap of the race, the only driver to get into the 1 minute 33s, and that took him in the car started by Andrzej Lewandowski up from 16th to 4th. He felt just a few more laps and had been challenging the leaders. He was only 6 seconds down on Marcus Pavrud at the end. That was one remarkable drive by Karol Bash. And deserving of outright victory in so many ways, but he's very happy indeed to take victory in the Pro-Am class. Looking at how to hold things. You see Karol was the second driver. He's the driver on the right. No wonder he looks hot. He was doing the second half of the race, and not only doing that, he was picking off cars in front of him, left, right and centre. For Vincenzo Sospiri Racing, the national anthem. So for the 2 Polish drivers for the Italian team, Andrei Lewandowski and Karel Bash. Karel super quick to get that car not just to the front of the Pro-Am class, but very nearly to the front of the field. So now it's the turn of the drivers in the AM class. Third in class, Giuseppe Fascicolo and Claude-Yves Gosselin should be the first two drivers to the podium. Third in the AM class, 18th place overall. Just waiting for them to socially distance their way into the image and collect their trophies, maybe the first of many in the season. Plenty of struggling, just waiting to work out which particular ones they have to pick up. Giuseppe Fascicolo and Claude-Yves Gosselin, third place in class for Boutson-Gignon Racing. Still waiting to pick up their trophies. Still waiting to find out if anything is untoward for car number 44 that finished second overall. That matter is still under investigation. We presume it's for clattering into the back of the race-leading car, Milos Pavlovic, with just 2 corners to go on the final lap of tonight's race, the night race, Lamborghini night race. Certainly a very popular feature of the championship. There are still some trophies on the table waiting to be collected by the driver. Wait to see which crew will go up, but certainly the order at the end in the AM class with Cedric Lima taking victory for Auto Vitesse, Target Racing's Massimo Mantovani kicking himself for having to do a drive-through penalty, and even that withstanding, he got very close to pinching the place back. And then Giuseppe Fascicolo and Claude-Yves Gosselin, who started the race for Boutson-Gignon, they are listed third in the AM class. Drivers still looking very hot indeed. Third place in class, Giuseppe Fascicolo. And don't forget, there's the Lamborghini Cup class as well, and that was won by Mikonek Motorsport, number 22 entry, which was shared by Kurt Wagner, who finished, and Libor Voracek, who started that off. And second place for Massimo Mantovani. He'll be frustrated, but he knows he's got the speed to improve on that. But by dint of an error, speeding in the pit lane, it's about the most embarrassing and cheapest way of picking up a penalty. But victory to Auto Vitesse and Cedric Lima in the AM class. Laurent Jenny and Cedric Lima, they're the two of them. Cedric brought the car home. Laurent Jenny, fellow Swiss racer, did the opening stint. The first place trophy, all arms and elbows, all hands, all thumbs, all fingers, trying to get everything in the right place. It's a hot evening. We'll cut the drivers some slack. So, points on the board. So as the strains of the Swiss national anthem ebb away, we have the Lamborghini Cup podium to follow, and it's Mikonek Motorsport who'll be, when I say on the top step, well, there is no step, it's on the level in the paddock. And the last few trophies, and again, it's great to have trophies going a long way down through the field. Class battles count as much. They know they're not going to take on all the pros, but the Lamborghini Cup drivers, and we see them progressing. Of course, Van der Horst Motorsport have moved up from LC Lamborghini Cup class to the Pro-Am class this year with, well, none other than Loris Spinelli joining Gerhard van der Horst. So it's a chance for the drivers to mix it in different circles with different combinations, and hopefully enjoy what they're up to very much indeed. In fact, now is the time that Massimo Mantovani comes up. So this is the time of the AM runners. Thumbs up from Massimo, but he will be a bit disappointed in himself for speeding in the pit lane. But we all know some racing drivers, I'm not saying Massimo's one of them, suddenly find a very good reason as to why they were speeding in the pit lane and why it wasn't their fault. But he came away with second in class, and that certainly is something to build on for him in the AM class. Drivers go racing for the pleasure, but also trophies are a very nice thing to have, quite clearly. Cedric Lima, Laurent Geny, they're at our first place in the AM class for them. Sorry, I misidentified them earlier. So as the national anthem fades away, Cedric Lima and Laurent Geny lead the podium, but there'll be plenty to talk about. But to me, one of the things that really stands out was the speed of Karel Basch. He's starting tomorrow's race from pole position. His car started 16th today, and yet he brought it through not just to win Pro-Am, but he was in 4th place overall. We will look out for him again tomorrow, but the big difference tomorrow will be the fact that the highlights will look very different. We're going to look forward to the night racing highlights right now. It was dark. Marcus Paverud was in the paddock. He was looking at his car. Sebastian Balthazar in pole position, but he was given the jump because the number 6 Edoardo Liberati car got ahead on the run to the first corner. He clearly did something slightly too soon because a drive-through penalty would come his way. But the first 2 cars really started to pull clear, and it looks like it's going to be a 2-horse race. Sebastian Balthazar very impressive, but Liberati edging clear, and in behind it was nose-to-tail action. Number 7 very much in the mix early in the race, Jonathan Chicotto. Cars running wide at turn 16, twitchy moments when you run on the grasscrete on the exit of that corner. But for number 2, it assumed the lead when Vincenzo Sospiri Racing's car came in to serve a drive-through penalty. That dropped Liberati right down the order. Dean Stoneman didn't have to hand over to anyone. He got up to 3rd position, but he was to fall back, maybe the cost of racing solo. But up at the front end of the field, the order kept on changing. Imperiale Racing starting to work their way up to the front. Marcus Paverud, the Norwegian racer, stepping up from GT4, looking very good. He came out in 2nd place, immediately slotted into the lead. Then, unfortunately, number 21 went for a rotation. That was Takis Spiliopoulos. Didn't bring out a safety car, but still shaping up at the front. We had Kevin Ghilardoni in a great position, but number 9 and 16 right in the mix, and 16 was being driven with real aplomb by Karel Basch, picking his way up the order. But at the very front of the field, it was still Paverud holding on, but then a problem behind the back marker, and suddenly he went from 1st back into 3rd position. And the race lead was taken by Milos Pavlic by the smallest of margins, but he was chased to the finish by Kiko Galbiati. But victory he held on to for Target Racing.